is hang on. Don't say anything. Where am I? Losing my mind. Here we go.
Live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. It's time for Middays with Q. Now to your host, Rich Quinones.
Good afternoon, everyone. 12 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Friday edition of Middays with you. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. We are coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town studios, in conjunction with Coastal Sports Network. We will take you up to 1 o'clock straight up. As always, me, Armando Angel Martinez, behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air, 60 plus minutes to play with. And then as we roll into the dog days of summer, July, August, obviously will be Monday to Friday, 12 to 2. We're working on a couple of little good nuggets as well with what we're doing on the network. We've added a couple shows. So as always, we encourage you guys to download the app. We are powered by ION TV. Good to be back in the saddle. And I'll tell you something. So I guess I wanted to start off. Well, I want to get into a lot of NFL today because yesterday we had a good conversation. We had a good debate and good dialogue when we were talking about some of these quarterbacks on the hot seat. Today, we're kind of going to transition over to the head coaches. And I want to dive into that a little bit. I want to sprinkle in some baseball to start. I'll give you my plays as well from our good friends over at Played Against Sports and Fresh Roasted Coffee. And as always, don't forget, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on all over the place. Spalding Media Network, good afternoon to you as well, my friend. Always appreciate your group checking in. And if you guys want to get in on the conversation, 727-858-6650. So there's a memo that should be put out there to major league managers. And we're going to get Steve Gardner on next week. He had a little shuffling of his schedule, and I would have loved to have grabbed him today to talk a little bit about this. Stop pulling friggin' pitchers who are cruising along. Stop. Why are we at this point right now in baseball? And it annoys the hell out of me being a passionate baseball fan, being a purist baseball fan. And I'm not, the guy on the porch screaming, with his coffee. Here you go, his fresh roasted coffee screaming. That's not what I'm saying. But when I see a hurler who's out there absolutely wheeling and dealing, like I see this young kid with the Pittsburgh Pirates who got pulled again last night. Now, you might sit there and say, Q, who the hell cares about the Pittsburgh Pirates? They're a bad baseball team. Not the point. You got this kid, Paul Skenes, and again, he got pulled during a no-hit bid. Second time. 7 no-hit innings, 11 strikeouts. Pirates beat the Brew Crew 1-0. And you got to listen to his manager explain that, yeah, you know what? I had to pull him because he was tired and he just, he didn't have good stuff. Wait, what? I mean, are you kidding me with this nonsense? It's absolutely ridiculous that we're at this point. And by the way, this kid, if you haven't looked up, this kid, his rookie season is friggin' phenomenal. I mean, it's reminding me of Fernando Venezuela. It's reminding me of Dwight Gooden in 84, Fernando Mania in 81, Mark Fidrich, the Bird in the late 70s. This kid's 6-0 with a 1.90 ERA. And by the way, I hate to go this route because we're going to get into the boxing talk later on to close the show. But this adage, right? Think about this. If you remember in Rocky, Mickey would always tell Sylvester Stallone, Rocky Balboa's character, stay away from her. She's no good. Women weaken legs. Well, it's not the case with this kid who's dating one of the Dunn sisters, right? I mean, listen, his legs are not weakened. This kid is mowing down hitter after hitter after hitter, and it's fun to watch, man. But why are we, because of the way baseball is constructed now, we're not in the 20-something odd years ago, it was sexy to have complete games. And I remember I had this conversation with a couple Hall of Fame baseball writers years ago. And I put up the stats. And I'm going to pull it up for you guys as well. If you go back to, let me just see, if we go all-time leaders, you're not touching Cy Young. You'd have to have 1,000 careers. Cy Young, 749. You're talking about, again, we're talking career complete games. Let's just throw these guys out the window. Let's go to, I guess you can say, modern day and kind of put it in perspective, right? The live ball era. You guys would be hard pressed to right now, without looking it up, give me 4 or 5 pitchers that have had over 200 complete games that you would be familiar with. You would be very hard. If you're a baseball fan, if you're an astute baseball fan, you'll throw out, a guy like Tommy Seaver. You'll throw out a Carlton and a Gibson, right? Because those are, Fergie Jenkins. But now, if you pull up, for instance, if you look at complete games in baseball since 2000, okay? Since 2000, let me see if these names ring a bell to you. Obviously, the great Doc Holliday, Roy Halladay, but you're talking 32 games, 34 games. Remember Livan Hernandez, Montreal back in the day in 2004, 35 games. Remember Bartolo Colon, that seemed like he was pitching forever? 2003, he had 9 complete games. Holiday had 9. Pardon me, I was looking at the games they were pitching in their record. So let's start over. CC Sabathia, 10. Doc Holliday, 9 for Holiday. 9. Hernandez, 9. Bartolo Colon, 9. Mark Mulder, 9. This is, and this ends in 2011, James Shield. I haven't even given you the last 2010 to 2024. Haven't even given you that. Why? Because it is such a lost art, because these pitchers are being pulled. They want to shorten up the game. They want to go to the bullpen. They want to go to the middle of relief. Complete games, to me, I don't know where I would equate it to in other sports. I mean, I'm throwing names at you. You guys haven't heard of these guys. Let's be honest. Garrett Cole had 2 complete games in 2022. He had 2 in 2021. There were 3 complete games in 2023. 1 complete game by 6 or 7 pitchers thus far in 2024. And that's only in one of the leagues. I'm only giving you, by the way, in that stat, if you go all the way back, we're only looking at the American League. I haven't even given you the National League. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. We're the days of the complete game, the no-nos, they're gone. They don't want to take a shot. They don't want to take a chance with these guys. They're so afraid because they're bigger, stronger, the way they contort their arms and their elbows and their throwing motion. It is a different animal, man. Max Fried, 2 in 2024. The kid from the Miami Marlins, 6 and 3 respectively, right? Alcantara, who struggled a little bit. Wheeler with the Phillies, 3 in 2021. It's a lost art. It is a lost art. Christopher Sanchez, there you go. It's so, I watch these games and I think to myself, Jovan, always appreciate you, pal. Can't wait to get you back on as well. It's a lost art. They want to pull these guys. You got a kid cruising. Look, complete games, perfect games, no hitters. They are not the norm anymore. And I'm trying to think to myself, if we were to equate it, the complete games to baseball, that stat, that feat, I mean, is it a guy dropping, I can't even say 50 in the NBA, because how many players scored more than 50 this year? Guys that probably have career averages of 8 and 10 explode for 50. It is a lost art. And I feel bad because some of these pitchers deserve to go out there and they deserve to try to mow them down and get the no-no. I mean, think about this. You're 6 outs away from a no-no. And if I'm a pitcher and I got pride and I got an ego, that's hard for me to walk away from. That's hard for me to swallow. It really is. And I get it. Pittsburgh's taken this approach where you want this kid healthy for the long haul. Okay, fine. I know there's the rub. There's the argument. I get it. The best of both worlds. But you look up in the standings right now, they're 8.5 back of the Brewers. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Come on, Q. What about the wild card? Okay, fine. We can talk about that. You got 2 spots in the NL wild card right now as it sits. They're 2.5 back. I get it. But I just feel as though, isn't that part of the purity of the game? Isn't that part of the purity of baseball? Don't we want to see these guys go out and battle and compete? And listen, there's no guarantee that this kid was going to go out and throw a no-no. As soon as they went to the middle relief, the kid gives up a single. I look at it as I feel as though if these guys got an opportunity, man, let them go out there. But I understand the flip side. I think my problem is more or less with the excuse. He looked tired. He didn't have his stuff. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? You know, everyone goes back to, if you're a Mets fan, you look at Johan Santana, right? You look at Johan Santana, you throw him out there for that no-no, and then all of a sudden the arm problems, and he was never the same pitcher. You know, Strasburg, Washington wanted to do it with Steven Strasburg. I remember screaming on the air, right? Remember back in the day, they were shutting him down. They were shutting him down. I mean, think about that. Think about that for a moment. That was Mike Rizzo's decision. He shut down Strasburg in 2012. In 2012. And this was a team that had, again, the look of a team at the time that could have won the World Series. And it blew up in their face. He shut him down prior to the 2012 playoffs, if anyone remembers. And the Nationals, it was the earliest elimination in the Nationals in the post-Strasburg shutdown era, right? They made the playoffs, but they lost in the first round, 2012, I believe. I'll pull it up, 2014, 2016, 2017. They were eliminated in contention in 2015, right? So the manager's heart's in the right place. But again, you got to adjust accordingly, man. And when you got a kid out there who's locked in, what's going to happen in the playoffs now? What's going to happen? Say it's in the playoffs and this guy's 6 or 7 and he screws and here we go. And he's got a no-no. You going to pull him then? I don't know. And like I said, good for him to be an NL All-Star starter. Good for him. The kid, his numbers are ridiculous. And if you're not watching baseball, if you're not glued to the tube watching baseball like we do, you probably have no idea who this kid is. Oh, yeah, he pitches for the Pirates and he dates one of the Dunn girls. That's probably what you're thinking right now. His numbers are staggering. And he could have just, if you go back to Dwight Gooden, because Dwight Gooden, his career, you almost have to marvel at what he did early on in his career. And then obviously the drugs and the alcohol, everything derailed him. Dwight Gooden, when he was 20 years old, Dwight Gooden won 17 games when he was 19 years old. Okay, that was back in 1984. 1985, and it's right before the Mets. They started to come on 84. You saw them building. 85 culminates in the World Series win in 86. Great playoff drama against the Astros, coming back from the Boston Red Sox in Game 6, the whole 9 yards. Gooden, Cy Young in 1985. Look at his numbers. They were unbelievable. They were absolutely unbelievable. The kid was 24-4. 1.53 ERA. What's so remarkable about Dwight Gooden, if you take the first 4 to 5 years of Dwight Gooden's career, he was going to roller skate. Okay, he was going to roller skate into Cooperstown. 17-9, 24-4, 17-6, 15-7, 18-9. Little banged up in 1989. Came back, won 19-20 games in 1990. I mean, it's amazing. You look at this kid right now for the Pirates. I get it. It's early, 6-0, 1.91 ERA, couple of opportunities for a no-no, and it's taken away, right? And it's taken away. And I'm not a fan of that. I just think we pull these guys. You can go back. We saw it with the Phillies. We saw it with the Mets. We've seen it with the Yankees. You can, again, the pitch count saving these guys. Can you imagine? Are we ever going to see a pitcher again with, say, 20 complete games in a season? Are we ever going to see a pitcher again with 5 complete games in a season? Are we ever going to see a pitcher again with 10 complete games in a season? No. We're not. It's unfortunate, but if you get a chance to watch this kid pitch, watch the kid pitch. He's incredible. And right now, we're moving towards closer to the trade deadline. And we know there's going to be teams out there, buyers and sellers. We don't know what the Yankees are going to do. They've been struggling big time. One of my picks yesterday, Tampa screwed me on that one. So be it. It happens. But You look what's going on in the AL right now. Baltimore, Henderson, I mentioned you watch the MVP odds, how they shift and move a little bit. Cleveland, underrated team, 57 wins already. Seattle, playing really good at home, 52 wins. AL, underrated team. Then you look at the NL, and right now I still believe the Phillies and the Dodgers are the two best teams. I'm not going to discount Milwaukee, but they don't have the firepower like the Phillies do. And credit, I gave you the Phillies yesterday. We gave you the Phillies on the money line. We thought maybe it was going to be a high-scoring game. We were looking at 8.5, 9. Not the case. But they got the win 5-1 over the Dodgers. And really the story for the Philadelphia Phillies is the pitcher that I've gotten on for a lot of years because I don't know which Aaron Nola is going to show up. Aaron Nola right now is 11-4. Aaron Nola has pitched brilliantly his last 3 out of 4 starts. Now, tough luck loser in that Miami lost 3-2. His last, I think it was his third start ago. He's pitched really well. He's put himself in there for NL Cy Young consideration. Phillies are going to be a good team. Interesting to see if they add another bat. Maybe tinker around with the outfield, but they're scoring a lot of runs at a really high pace. And as I mentioned, they're going to be a very tough out in the NL. So get your thoughts like I mentioned. Again, where are you guys at with no more complete games in baseball? Does it sour you as a fan? Does it make you kind of want to flip to 2 when you know the kid's going 5, 6, 7 strong, and all of a sudden, boom, let's shorten up the game, the middle relief? Let me hear what you guys have to say. 727-858-6650. I'll get your comments on the other side, just cranking it up on a Friday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. And it seems as though, and we say that tongue-in-cheek, it seems as though the audio is in place. He sounds well. He's alive. He's got a little juice. Can we get the incredible shrinking hermano on? Can we get him on the set? I mean, Angel is doing so much. You guys have absolutely no idea how much he does. Graphics, illustration, artwork, producing his own show. I don't know. I mean, is he building software? Is he building towers? What are you doing? Where's the incredible shrinking hermano? I see the black screen. Is there a way we can get you there? Or do I need to friggin' refresh? He's about to tell me you need to refresh. Just talk to me, Angel. That's all. I just need to hear your voice.
I feel like I should be landing at 737.
And I can't even hear your voice.
I don't know why.
You know what? We're gonna break it.
I don't know why. Because we can't. I can't even. Look,
I'm gonna have to refresh. I love when Angel gets like this. He's so fiery and feisty. So we're going to refresh. We're going to take a timeout. 20 past the 12 o'clock hour. We got some good comments on Facebook. I want to get to a couple more comments as well. You guys chiming in 727-858-6650. Get in on the conversation. Bring something to the table. We got some NFL news and notes to get into. And by the way, if the SBs are on and no one's around to watch them, does that mean they were still on? I'll give you my thoughts on what has just turned into a debacle. I don't know what was worse last night. I mean, I'm watching what's going on with our country right now. I'm thinking to myself, what am I watching? Sometimes I listen to these powerful leaders and I feel as though they're kind of Will Ferrell, Ron Burgundy-ish, right? You remove that cue card, they have no idea what the hell is going on. All right, 20 past 12 o'clock hour, just cranking up on a Friday edition of Middays with you, coming at you right here exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, part of the Coastal Sports Network, and we are powered by ION TV. We'll come back on the other side.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
ION Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, IONTB.com. ION Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by ION Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, It's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at RichQ on Q. And now, back to Q.
Bueno. All right, 125 on a... I think this units here. There he is. In the box. Circle gets a square.
Yeah. My question is, can you hear?
Yeah, I got you, brother. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
I don't know, because I was about to go absolutely apeshit. If that's supposed to.
Yeah. You were about to go postal on me?
Yeah.
You got it. It's all good. You're in the screen. You're in the incredible shrinking Hermano. You're back in the saddle. Let's go. Let's do it. How are things on this Friday? How is the weather down there in TB?
We're finally getting sun out the studio window here, but I was saying earlier that I felt like I was going to land at 747 or something else like that, because I feel like I should have like a gaming console in front of me. Like, yeah, all right, yeah, Frank, come around the rear.
Yeah,
kind of
like that scene. Like that scene in Airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those. Have you ever seen a grown man naked?
You ever been in a Turkish cell before?
Yeah.
You tell your old man to run up and down the court with friggin' Bill Walton and Bob Lanier for 48 minutes. All right, relax, Kareem, relax. That movie, by the way, pardon me. I know we mentioned movies yesterday. That's another movie at any scene. But that movie, History of the World and Blazing Saddles, you cannot air those movies. The level of offending people and the movies, I mean, every friggin' scene was it was outstanding. You know, pick the bad week to stop sniffing glue.
It is every single one of them. What about when you plugs the lights that are friggin' to the runway?
Oh my God, hilarious! Oh, look, there's a sale at Penny's.
But it's the way it was. That's when everybody used to have a sense of humor and common sense, which they don't have anymore. But no, this morning we had to make some adjustments on the fly and got things going here. As you know, you gotta love whether it's Windows, because I've had the same problem with Mac too. So the Mac folks, you guys defend yourselves. I've had it before where listen, sometimes there's drivers, there's stuff that updates, and unfortunately it decides to take a toll whenever it feels like. Now, yesterday with Pete, I was fine. When I went on with you, it had that underwater kind of crazy effect going on. Then it went away. Then this morning, when I go on to Pete, it was like we started at 6:20 in the morning, and I'm trying to do everything I possibly can, and he couldn't. So, in order to inside the studio to get everything rewired, I have to crawl around and move stuff around in order to get it to where everybody can see and hear us.
Right.
And in the process, I knocked over the 2 lamps that normally light up the studio in the morning, so that you don't have, dark shadows or anything else like that. So it's a lot that has to be done in order to work. Same way, like I keep kind of repeating to a lot of folks out there, when you guys are if you're listening to the old app, you wouldn't be listening to us right now because you would be listening to an old replay, not the live version. The apps are not currently available in stores because they take about 3 to 4 months to publish. So if you go to sr1029thegame.com, that's where you get the brand new app that's there ready for you to launch and activate and however else you want to say. And it's for so you don't have to go to either Apple and or the Android store.
Gotcha.
The one app covers every device
Yep.
you have: tablet, PC, Mac, Android, Apple, anything and everything, it's under there. So make sure when you guys are, if you're going back, you're because I get the email,
The inquiries.
yeah, where people say I'm just hearing old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost. I feel like now at this point I should be on a runway with this on here with 2 orange cones in my hand. Just go this way to the app and then turn it around and just take away the
So
you had in there.
I'm refreshing again. So sprout out, direct everyone to social media for me. Again, reiterate with the app. I'm just going to refresh because I got I think actually, you know what? No, it's fine. We're clear now. I don't know what you did. Can you put your right hand like this for a moment?
See,
Can you lift your left arm?
yeah.
There you go. No. Okay. By the way, no, you do fantastic work, man. I mean, seriously, we know that. Zach on Twitter just chimed in at Rich Q on Q. I made the bet last week because now your guy is plus 650 to win it all. You know, this kid, Paul Skeenius, from the Pittsburgh Pirates that I mentioned, he was plus 6,500 to win the Cy Young. Now he's all the way down to plus 650. It's absolutely crazy. And if we can we pull up Jovan's last comment? Yeah, that's a good one. 20-game winners are a lost art. Most pitchers don't even qualify for quality starts because of openers and et cetera. 100%.
Well, yeah, but plus you look at it too. It doesn't, and when you were talking about in your opening dialogue, there is what doesn't make any sense to me. We saw this with Kevin Cash during the playoffs. You pulled your starter that was absolutely on fire, and I believe,
Great point.
opinion is that if he would have left him in there, the outcome for the Rays would have been they would have won a World Series.
You're talking about when he pulled Blake Snell.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
that's a great point. He was so dominant, and you're right. The fact that they pulled him, it was like, what are we doing? And by the way, that was the bottom of the 6 of the World Series. That was game 6.
Yep.
Which ultimately did them in.
Yeah. It was just stupid. So I don't understand like this whole thing, but like, oh, we got to save them this, that, listen, if we keep coddling people, no one wants to do anything. Take a look at Philadelphia, by the way, right now, where Mayor Cheryl Parker is trying to get people to come back physically into a building, and she's getting people that she pays for at home to fight her all the way to say, we're not coming back on Monday. So the way I see it is, well, guess what? I'd rather restart my cabinet by telling everybody, you want to stay home? Great, stay home. You just no longer have a job. But this is what happens. We keep coddling and coddling and coddling. We're doing no different here with the pitchers because how do you pull a guy who's literally lighting the lamps last night? It's only at pitch 99.
Yeah.
7 no hits, and you take that away from him.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Are you going back to last night or are you going back to Cash?
Last night.
Oh, yeah, last night. I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification on that. Well, 2 schools of thought, right? It's only July. They're in wild card contention, right? You're saving the arm. Last postseason, Blue Jays manager pulled Barrios in the 4th when he was pitching well. Yeah, listen, we can run through the gamut of so many pitchers and so many scenarios. I guess there's the counter to that, right? Because you want to save these arms. I still believe when Washington shut down Strasburg, that to me was almost like the I don't want to say the guinea pig test. I don't want to say that. It was more of like, okay, the tipping point in baseball where you've got a guy, $200 million arm, and you're going to be very judicious with him. But to your point, you're paying these guys to go out there and give, what do we always say? Well, we need these starters to go 6, 7, but that's not the way baseball is anymore. I totally understand and I get it. But man, I'll tell you, this kid's having a special start to the first half of his career, and it could be legendary. And I hate to say it also like this, when you add in the sports betting and the gambling component of it, if you're banking on this kid as a future to win, say 10, 11, 12 games, or maybe have 2 or 3 complete games, or maybe be NL Cy Young, and all of a sudden the manager's pulling him. I mean, look, that's a crapshoot it is, when you're betting with props in sports. But point being, we're never going to get to the days where you will see a pitcher, especially in the postseason too. That's the other thing. I mean, the Snell example you brought up is 100% dead on accurate. You're talking about the World Series, man. What do we when guys are when a team's down 3-2? What do you hear? Oh man, they can throw out their ace. He's going to quote save the season. He's going to quote extend the series. Well, you're throwing guys out there back in the day. If you're throwing at Jack Morris or a Dwight Gooden or a Cone or a Pedro Martinez or a Dave Stewart, or an Oral Hershiser back in '88. You pulling these guys 4, 5, 6 innings. Hell, remember when Pedro Martinez had to come in on beyond short rest against the Yankees? And he threw 4 or 5 innings. We're not there anymore. And I can't even sit there and say these pitchers aren't tough because they haven't been tested. That is kind of my whole point. Let them go out there. Let them earn the money. And then that part of me, again, I hate hedging and talking out of both sides of my mouth. But then there's this part of me where the managers are so worried that they're going to throw their arms out. They're not going to have them come September and October. They're going to lose a year. They're going to, these guys come back pretty fast from Tommy John surgery too, right? Do they not? It's not like years ago where you were on the shelf for an entire year. Now the guys are making ridiculous comebacks. I don't know. Maybe they're doing what Rodgers is doing and just rubbing a whale sperm on their elbow. I don't know. What do you think?
See, probably they got to be doing something for them to come back that quick. They got to be doing absolutely something, at least right. Well, you got to like everything else, right? When things advance, you just hope that things continue to get better, and that's what we see because a lot of these guys, it's temporary. They go out, they come back, they get healed, and then they go, back into the farm. But the more we listen, September is still a good distance away. I don't care what. So if you're going to take them out just because you guys are in, and you brought up a great point with Strasburg, the same exact way. So you're now shutting them down in July. Don't forget, let's remember too, that Strasburg was also shut down the entire month of August.
Yeah.
And how well did that work out for him?
It
did that.
It didn't. It didn't work out for him. And, it was good. Obviously, ultimately, they were able to finally win a World Series with him. Same thing with the Dodgers and Kershaw. So, but yeah, like I said, there's so many examples of this. Every team has dealt with it. And then you always have that, the Johan Santana, you keep him in there and then he throws his arm out and he's never the same. Again, I'm not going to put too much stock. You can go out there and throw your arm out after one pitch. We've seen it before after several pitches, but the managers, they have the final say. And if it comes back to bite them in the ass, then guess what? They're going to be held accountable. And more times than not, they're going to be out of a job. But for Pittsburgh's manager to sit up there and just say the guy looked gassed and he looked tired, he was still mowing down, right? Come on. Exactly. It's not like that scene in, what was it? Bull Durham when, he's giving him the signal. He's like, man, he hit that right over the wall. I think he just won himself a steak. And he's like, I don't even know how he knew. He's like, I told him, right? He's like, when you speak of me, speak highly. Kevin Costner giving away the signals there against Nuke Lelouch. So, all right. So midway through a Friday, good stuff on the comments. Keep them coming as well. Always appreciate the interaction. I'll read off some Facebook comments as well. You can follow us on X at CSN Florida, Coastal Sports Network. And I mentioned that, again, we're building. Give us a follow. We are powered by Ion TV. And, of course, you're listening to a Friday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez. We are live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. As we like to kind of kid and joke, we see you watching us. All right. So with that being said, quick timeout. Head coaches on the hot seat in 2024. I've got my list. I've got my markers. I got my pens. I'll give you my list. Some names are going to surprise you, and others you guys are probably going to sit there and say, come on, you are just now hating Q. And that could be true as well. Both comments could be true. 12:34, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey. Why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, You give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Middays with Q. Here's Q.
All right, 41 past the 12 o'clock hour, a Friday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show. You out there as well, 727-858-6650. Appreciate you guys keeping us locked in. Don't forget, start your week off right. Pete Sheppard Show, 7 to 10, Monday to Friday, followed by mi hermano Angel Martinez, Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, myself, Rich Q, and of course, Middays with Q, 12 to 2. We added a couple new shows as well. Jonathan Marshall and his brother Marshall Time, fantastic hoop show. You got Talking Hoops. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football Mondays at 8. Download the app, as Angel mentioned. Go to the website. We'll put that out on Twitter, as we typically always do. You can also log on to BroadStreetSouth.com. You can click on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. We are powered by ION TV. For all your breaking news alerts, traffic, weather reports, check out our good friends over at ION TV. And if you go to their homepage and scroll right to the right, you will see Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. All right, so with that being said, little NFL talk to kind of what the whistle. By the way, Bill Belichick, he's going to have to wear a suit. The hoodie is joining inside the NFL. So that'll be interesting. I mean, listen, I think there are certain players and or coaches or ex-players or coaches that if you had an opportunity to ever cover them or interview them, you know, I went to 2 or 3 Belichick press conferences in my life. And you can ask him about special teams and he will basically go off 45 minutes. I mean, he is a savant when it comes to the NFL. Listen, if he's on the panel and we're taking a break, I'm kind of pulling him aside and being like, Hoodie, you're 63. She's 25. What are we doing here? But anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of insight he gives, which coincidentally enough, nice little segue into some of these coaches that I have on the hot seat. And I want to get your thoughts, Angel, as well. I want to get your thoughts out there, 727-858-6650. So I think we can start with the obvious choices heading into the 2024 season. Now, I will say this, full transparency. These are all objective names that I'm throwing out there. There's no bias. There's no hate. We're not pushing an agenda. What I'm telling you, what I think, my opinion is, if these coaches don't get it right this year, you might see a change. And I think the obviously one to start is Mike McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys, entering his 5th year, 1-3 in the playoffs, 42-25 overall. He's won a lot of regular season games, right? I mean, think about this, 3 straight seasons, 12 plus wins. But this year, there's no Dan Campbell. Now all of a sudden he'll take over more or less the play calling. We already know what he does, conservative crunch time. We've seen it in the past. They were ill-equipped to play against the Green Bay Packers in a game where they just got shellacked and bounced in the playoffs. I feel as though Jerry Jones has really given Mike McCarthy a substantial amount of leadway, rope, if you will. And I think you can say what's interesting with this list and these coaches, this is what makes the NFL so unique. You don't see this in baseball, you don't see this in the NBA, and you don't see it in NHL. In baseball, we're not sitting here saying it's the pitcher and manager. In NBA, we're not saying it's, the star player or the center or the head coach. We're not doing that in the NHL, right? The goaltender and but in the NFL, we always partner up who? The head coach and the quarterback. And Prescott, fifth-year option as well, wants to get some more money, obviously wants to get a max deal. He might be out. Those two. The theme is the head coaches always line up with the quarterback and vice versa. And I think a lot of people will agree out there because ultimately, if the quarterback's not getting the job done, first head to fall is the head coach, then the quarterback. But I think McCarthy right there, definitely on the hot seat. That's my first head coach. Second one, a little obscure outside the box, Dennis Allen with the New Orleans Saints. Third season, 16-18 overall, no playoffs. A good defensive mind, but kind of shrinks up in crunch time. If you go back to his days as a Raiders head coach, you add up all those wins and losses, 24-46. Derek Carr is pretty much a boom or bust. Check down Charlie right now at this stage of his career. I don't like the quarterbacks on that roster at all. I think this is a make or break season for Dennis Allen. Then we go back to the NFC East and two head coaches. I believe Brian Daboll, this is it for Brian Daboll. This is his third season with the Giants. And listen, the Hard Knocks, you guys can sit there and people get sucked into what they see on the film. Right away, man. We're only seeing what they want us to see, right? I mean, everyone's like, I can't believe Joe Shane is having an open conversation with Saquon Barkley. Did he sign off on that? Put him on speak. Come on, man. Have you not friggin' watched Hard Knocks for 20 years? Every call is pretty much on speaker. Why? Because we want to know what the hell the other guy on the line is saying. I mean, come on, get your head out of your ass with that nonsense. So Shane and Saquon Barkley, we knew the handwriting was on the wall. Daboll with the antics, he backed Jones. They paid Jones. Jones got hurt. Prior to him getting hurt, he wasn't playing the quarterback position well. He was struggling. Daboll was getting in his face. And in the NFL, man, you can win a Super Bowl. In this case, you can be a coach of the year like Brian Daboll was. And they're 1-1 in the playoffs. They got the big win against Minnesota. They were ill-equipped to go on the road and play the Eagles the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. That game was over within 5 minutes after a couple botched snaps. I don't believe Daniel Jones is going to be ready to start the season, but I also believe that the Maras are very impatient. They're seeing what's going on in the NFL. They're seeing that it's a what have you done for me lately type of league. I think John Mara probably feels to a man they should have got a deal done with Saquon Barkley, but ultimately he's the one that signs off on it, being the ownership group, not the GM. So Brian Daboll, huge make or break season for him. McCarthy, Allen, Daboll, staying in the NFC East. Your Philadelphia Eagles, your Nick Sirianni. I know what you guys are saying. It's shooting fish in the barrel for me. I can't stand Sirianni. I think he's a friggin' clown, the friggin' antics on the sidelines. But again, what have you done for me lately? You mentioned it a lot of times last year on Martinez and Company. I mentioned it a substantial amount of times on BYP, Back Your Play with Q, and now I'm doing it again with Middays with Q. There is a disconnect between the quarterback and the head coach. I don't need to be in the locker room. I don't need to be covering this team. It's clear as day. Stevie Wonder can see what's going on. We can all see what's going on. I mean, seriously, all kiddingness, all jokes aside, there's a disconnect. The quarterback got paid. He didn't perform particularly well down the stretch. This team was 10-1. They dropped 6 out of 7. They didn't show up against Tampa Bay. You saw the blow-ups on the sideline. You saw the antics. You saw how he acted like a friggin' petulant child, like a jerk-off after they beat Kansas City, like a kid telling people to get off the court. I mean, that kind of stuff, you can get away with it when you're winning football games. But when you're losing, you can't get away with it. And the fan base gets very impatient. And we know about the fan base in Philadelphia. We know about the fanatical fans in Philadelphia. So those two are joined at the hip. And if this team starts off slow, and if the quarterback struggles, it's going to fall on the head of the head coach. Now, it's very rare that we have seen the Philadelphia Eagles make head coaching changes in the season, right? Sometimes it's almost like a game or two left. You make the switch. It's rare. Some franchises don't like to do that, right? So, but you knew when Chip Kelly, listen, when they lost to Tampa, Detroit, and Miami, and Chip Kelly stood there and he was just had that monotone look. He just looked disheveled. He wasn't cocky. He wasn't arrogant. He was brash. You knew the handwriting was on the wall. Doug Peterson, there was friction there. And Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. I mean, think about that. Life in the NFL moves at you fast. You win a Super Bowl, and a couple years later, he might be on this list, right? But point being, he got let go by the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, people want to sit there and say it was more or less his decision. He got pushed out. He was clashing with ownership, the coaching staff. Jeffrey Lurie wanted to bring in his guys. I think Sirianni, the fact that you've got two coordinators now, Angel, that have head coaching experience, I think the last thing a head coach wants to have to worry about is looking over his shoulder. So that's your guy. I say tongue in cheek, Nick Sirianni. Would you agree or disagree as I put him on my list?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly, I agree. Because again, we've talked about it before in the past, and I'll keep saying it. Until Nick shows me much different than what we saw last year, when the collapse started to happen, and people thought I was nuts when I started talking about it, I said, there is the disconnect that's starting to happen. What happened? There was a disconnect. Now, by no means, I don't try to do like the Philly disc jockeys were like, I told you what was going to happen. No, it was an open discussion. And it was talked about because you could see, for those who know the game, when the disconnect starts to happen.
Yep.
You could see it. You could start seeing the players. And then when we heard the piss poor excuse that, oh, he was sick and that's why he took a different plane. No.
You're talking about Jalen Hurts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then he decided to take the whole, a whole different plane. He arrives there, now magically he's not sick. He wants to play, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then we go to the offseason. Now, Jalen Hurts is kind of like Bill Belichick-esque. There's not a whole bunch of, like, you're not going to get Jalen Hurts kind of like exploding out of the gates and saying really what's on his mind, because he stays firm. He stays a course. But you can also start to see when it started falling apart that Jalen Hurts was not Jalen Hurts. And even he knows for this season, you're going to have to prove to the Philly faithful that you are completely different from what we saw at the end of last season.
So let's go back for a second. Whose job is it so you're saying Jalen Hurts wasn't Jalen Hurts? Would we attribute to inconsistency with the offense, struggles? He's not 100%. Maybe there was a disconnect with the coaching staff. Is it all on the head coach? So how much blame, like if a guy gets hurt, how much of that falls on the head coach? If the quarterback, is banged up and his knee or his ankle's twisted, then it's foolish and asinine to design a design rollout for him or an RPO, right? You're just going to get the kid hurt. But point being is, how much of Jalen Hurts' struggles late in the season do you put on the head coach is my question.
Oh, I would put at least 92.36% on Nick Sirianni, because again, you have to understand, your quarterback. You're supposed to know your quarterback. Dougie was really good at knowing his quarterbacks. He was really good at knowing his players. And even there was times where his running backs, and he had the three-headed horseman. Even he knew, like, listen, I understand it. I told you I'm going to give you X amount of repeats, but we're going to change it up this week. And then when Dougie did it, of course, it worked, right? It got us to Super Bowl. He knew exactly what he was talking about. Versus you have Nick Sirianni. Take the agent part of it. One thing that drives me absolutely nuts when it comes to agents is like, oh, hold on for a second. Let me send you this memo real quick that remind you that my guy, send, is the guy that starts the game off. Okay, but at the same time, too, you also have to let the GM, let the assistant head coach, let the head coach make that decision. Say, you know what? Maybe he just needs the week off. Or you know what? Maybe he doesn't start the game, but we'll bring him in at the half, because we saw it in the switching just gears here in the NHL, down here with the Lightning. Ever since Vasilevsky got lit up in Colorado, where he got shellacked 8 goals before he decided to change him out, Vasilevsky has not been the same. Now, Tampa fans, you guys can call in or send your comments this way.
So you're equating the goalie as important, obviously. But here's the thing, I love your where you're taking me with this, right? And let me get Jovan's comment. The fact that there were reports about Sirianni, Brian Johnson clashing about plays that came after the season, not a good look. No, because it's always after the fact. We hear the rumblings or players leave or stuff gets leaked out. Coordinators get fired, they're jettisoned, and then the stuff starts to leak out. But I feel as though in the NHL, you have more. You're more liberal when it comes to pulling the goalie.
Mhm.
Like I feel as though you can pull the goalie every night and then throw him back out there. In football in the NFL, you start benching quarterbacks, that's always a top story.
Right.
Now imagine if Hurts got benched. Now I want to read off these numbers for you.
Sure.
So the Eagles were 10-1, and then we know the San Francisco 49ers just friggin' broke them. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. The 49ers basically just dog walked the Philadelphia Eagles 42-9 and put an end to anything. That was pretty much all she wrote. They lost to the 49ers that day. Hurts threw for 298, 1 touchdown. They lost to Dallas, where the defense did not do their job, 33-13, but Hurts was 18-27 for $197, no touchdowns, no picks. He was sacked once. They lost to Seattle. Remember, Locke made the plays late. Hurts was 17-31. You alluded to maybe he was sick. 17-31 for $143, 2 bad picks. They beat the Giants, and he had 300 yards. Everyone and their mother was throwing for 300 against the Giants. They lost to Arizona, which was a bad loss, even though he threw 3 touchdown passes to defense again. He had to pick, didn't get sacked, and then they lost to the Giants. He was in there for a cup of coffee, 7 of 16 for 55 yards. So that prompted the slide. And then in the playoff game, again, let's be honest, that offense let them down, right? And the defense didn't show up. No one showed up in that game, and he played poorly. But that, again, is coming off the numbers with that contract. So, like, for instance, I killed Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones goes on the road, and they beat Minnesota, and he cashes in 4 years, $160 million. Philadelphia Eagles go to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts cashes in. Big-time contract. Looks the part the first 10 games of the season. MVP, we're talking about it. Here we go. And then all of a sudden, regressed. So to kind of take it further, you throw Hurts in there along with the head coach, but you and I both know if it comes down to both those two individuals, they're not getting rid of Jalen Hurts. I find it very hard to believe this narrative that Jalen Hurts needs to, get back to stepping and fetching for the Philadelphia Eagles, like saying the right thing. Man, if he goes out there and performs and they win games in spite of the head coach or in spite of the coordinators, and he puts up the numbers that we're accustomed to, no one's going to say anything about Jalen Hurts. But if this team's losing, and it could be because of play calling, it could be because of the defense, and he's still putting up numbers, I feel as though people are still going to criticize him. But ultimately, it comes down on the head coach.
Correct.
Is really my point. And they should have made the change after they lost to Tampa Bay. And as John alluded to it, when you've got a coordinator and a head coach clash, the same crap happened in New York. You have all these reports about Brian Daboll not getting along with Wink Martindale.
Right.
Wink Martindale is old school, right? He's bringing a lunch pail to work. He's putting on the hard hat. He's friggin' clocking in, clocking out. Give me the OT. I'll work Saturdays and Sundays, but I'm not going to take your nonsense. And you have that. Sirianni, I think Daboll and Sirianni are the same in this regard. I think their antics show a lack of maturity to be a head coach in the NFL. I'm not saying they're not knowledgeable. I'm not saying they're good head coaches. They're bad head coaches. But I don't believe a grown man should act a certain way.
Correct.
I don't. And when you have those types of losses down the stretch, how do you survive that?
Correct. No,
That's what I don't understand. Like Doug Peterson friggin' won a Super Bowl. And guess what? He's on my list. I'll get to him in a moment. But how do you survive that? Why all of a sudden are they feel they have to be married to this guy as Eagles head coach? And you brought in these coordinators who have obviously roamed the sidelines as NFL head coaches. Sirianni, to me, doesn't have, I don't think he has thick skin in the regard of if they're 1-6, 2-5, and he looks lost and clueless, and you flip on us or sports talk radio in different markets or in Philly or national talking heads saying, hey, he's on the hot seat. I don't think he's equipped to deal with that. I just don't.
No, he's not, and no, you bring up a lot of valid points. The same thing that I would have brought up myself as well. But you can't. When first of all, when you had the whole, and I'll bring up Javon's comments here in a minute. But when your head of security is now getting the spotlight for what went on last season, and
Yeah.
now they gave him a new position, so basically the NFL can't kick him out of there. You mean so?
That's
What I'm
embarrassing.
looking for, I'm not looking for the head coach this season. I'm looking for the head of security this year to woo me more than my head coach. We got issues. I'm just starting right there because that to me is beyond ridiculous. Nick Sirianni at this point has to stop with, all these little goofy sayings he's trying to say, just like some nuts last night on national television, the same nonsense, calling a former the vice president, which is beyond freaking ridiculous, but that's neither here nor freaking there. But my thing is that Nick Sirianni has to be a lot freaking better. The accountability has to be there. When the season ended,
Yeah.
you should have taken about 12 hours and say, you know what? Season's over. The fans are going to let me have it. Tomorrow there's going to be cleanup day, and the day after, once everything is cleaned out, let me get my playbook. Let me see what the hell went wrong. Let me go back to the tape, figure out your steps where it got disconnected, and then say it's not going to happen again so that this season isn't comparable to last season. Because we are about a week and a half to 2 weeks away from training camp starting. And don't think that Philly fan base, as much as people want to judge and criticize people from Philly, we're not dummies by any means whatsoever. We understand the game. We know the game. But you go to training camp, I don't care if it's at the link for the first open practice or over at the NovaCare Center. It doesn't matter because the fans are going to let you know how they still feel because they have not let go of last season. Say whatever you want to. I know it's a brand new year, the whole 9 yards, but at the same time, the accountability, that weight that Nick should be walking in like someone who's 2 feet tall, where he's coming in there and knowing that he has to elevate himself to whatever his normal height is, 5'5", 5'6", 5'8", whatever he is. You should feel that pressure because that should put the motivational drive behind you for you to start out and looking around the talent that you have around you. But we've yet to see exactly what went on with that one. I'll bring up comments here by Juwan. Yep.
So, no other coach and head coach gets the same leverage in the NFL. They lose 7 out of 8, 100%.
Yep.
To piggyback that, again, correct. When you bring in Moore and Fangio, it's telling. The one thing, and you can't really do much about it, that, people have a right to tune in and listen to whatever they want to. And Philly, Chicago, DC, the New York market, sports talk, when you have that type of outlet and that microphone, you can push your own certain narrative. Now, if the fans, you never want to question a fan's intelligence, but if they're foolish enough to buy into that, so be it. But I also believe you're foolish and you're not paying attention. You're not reading the room if you believe that some of these head coaches that I mentioned are not on the hot seat, i.e. a Nick Sirianni, i.e. a Brian Daboll, i.e. a Mike McCarthy. I mean, in Dallas, they're talking about it. In New York, they're talking about it. In Philadelphia, I don't listen to them. I listen to us. We're talking about it, right? I mean, listen, Pete can attest to this. On WEI for years and a Boston guy, New England Patriots fan, right? They got tired of Bill Belichick. I mean, think about that for a moment. Patriot fans were getting tired of Bill Belichick.
Right.
Because they weren't winning.
Correct.
Someone's got to be, you always have to blame someone. Remember that great scene in Private Ryan when they were walking and Ed Burns, I love him in every movie, right? His character, they were talking about, the fact that, they have this, what's the word I'm looking for? Task of finding, new project, right? A task, right? Of finding Matt Damon's character, right? Private Ryan. And as they're walking, Burns is like, I don't think, this is worthy of, resources. And, all of a sudden Tom Hanks turns around and he's like, that's not how you gripe. Right. And then he's like, listen to me, you gripe to me, I gripe to my, that, the chain of command, how you gripe. Well, I say it to say this, in the NFL, It's the same exact thing. We want to hold someone accountable, right? So all of a sudden, who do we blame? We start to blame the players. Then we blame the coordinators. Then we blame the head coach. Then we blame the GM. There's this chain of command. Then all of a sudden, you look at the ownership group, right? And not to stray too much, but the other coach had Philadelphia ties. Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, and he got pushed out of Philadelphia. Now, again, however you want to read the room with that, it was a mutual decision, right? It was kind of like Tom Coughlin after winning 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, and he just kind of skirted through. Exactly. You're shaking your head. I hear you, right? Kind of skirted through Mara. I mean, it's just the handwriting is on the wall sometimes, and you need a change of scenery. But Doug Peterson now, this is his 3rd year in Jacksonville. They were 8-3. They were the darlings of the NFL after 11 games. They lost 5 of 6, just like the Eagles lost 6 of 7. They didn't make the playoffs, and now you give big contract to Trevor Lawrence. Now, I believe, this is me, I believe Doug Peterson has 1 year left. I think it's this season because you got 1 year with a new contract of Trevor Lawrence making a lot of money. You can look at Trevor Lawrence. They finished 9 of 8. Again, you got to make the playoffs. You have to make a deep run in the playoffs. But this is also a head coach that won a Super Bowl, and he might be on the outside looking in. So what Brian Daboll hasn't won anything. Mike McCarthy, it seems like 30 years ago, won something with Green Bay, and Nick Sirianni hasn't won anything. Now, would the narrative changed if Bradbury doesn't get called and Hurts is the MVP and the Eagles win the Super Bowl? We would probably be sitting here saying, Angel, you say Q, whatever, whoever we have on, they won the Super Bowl. He has a grace period, but that's not the case. It's what have you done for me lately? So in your backyard, to some extent, I throw Doug Peterson into the mix as well as a coach on the hot seat.
Kind of. I can kind of see it.
What the hell's kind of? You can't be a little pregnant? You got one cheek down and it's burning a little bit as opposed to 2 cheeks? Come on.
Possibly. No, but
I mean, what world is that? I mean, I don't know what world that would make a lot of, one night stands, a lot of whoosh when they leave the place, right? So,
it almost happened.
You get through Father's Day and all of a sudden it's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night and you don't hear your eye. All right.
Exactly. Who's on the phone? No, wrong person.
Yeah, exactly.
Who this?
Yeah. You want me to change my carrier? No, thank you.
Exactly.
But, no, you don't think so? So you don't think Dougie P?
So you're saying after this season, the full season?
No, I'm saying going into the season.
Going into the season?
Hence my friggin' list. Where the hell you been for the last 45 minutes?
No, I've been here, but my thing is because I'm looking at it as is if this season, because there were things that happened last season too that really didn't work out in Jacksonville's way. There were some injuries they were plagued with, so there was factors into that.
Yeah.
Versus Nick Sirianni, he had injuries too, but prior to the injuries, you can start seeing where everything started kind of collapsing.
Well, the Jags fired their coordinator too.
Correct.
Right. So they fired their defensive coordinator, Mike Caldwell.
Right.
But I mean, and they had that bad loss to the Titans 28-20. So that's your classic example of, hey, it's, Angel Martinez's company, Quinones is a schmuck. Get rid of him. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're going to make a scene, right? Heads have to roll on this Black Monday. Get rid of this guy.
No, it does. But I think for Doug this year, half the season, we'll talk about it again. We'll see what he looks like. But to me, I think you at least give him this season with what he has right now at stake. Now, I don't care about the whole thing about, the owner wanting to go to London, they're rebuilding, whatever. That's neither here nor there. You got to take that right out the window. If you're a fan, that means absolutely nothing to me. That was like when they started talking about when the vet came around and then it was a link, what we're going to do. All that goes out the freaking window. When you look at it now, Doug has to look and say, all right, here's what I have. I know I have my quarterback in the future. He's here. I've got my quarterback that I believe if something goes wrong, he's going to come in.
Hold on a second. Let me push back a little bit.
Okay.
And trust me, I like Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
I can 2 things. I can appreciate the locks, the long flowing hair. You know where I'm at with that. Well groomed. I'm good. Is he the quarterback, though? Is he the franchise quarterback?
Of the future? No.
Well, but you're just saying in one
I
breath that he is.
no,
So you look at Trevor.
I said I have
Yeah.
my quarterback, correct?
Okay, so yeah, you did. You're all
Okay.
right. That's fair. You're allowed to call me out on that. I mean,
Thanks.
we watching Fox News. Did I misinterpret? I'm just saying.
Yes. Matter of
What
fact,
say you, Trevor Lawrence? 3,500 yards, rookie season, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks, no offensive line, no running back. Second year, 25-8, made the playoffs, sacked 27 times. Third year, 21-14, over 4,000 yards, sacked 35 times, and yet they got rid of the defensive coordinator. They need to fix the offensive line.
correct. So that's why I mean that you have at least one more year with Doug. You have because
No, I don't. I think he's on the hot seat. Okay, let me tweak this a little bit.
Okay, I'm calling Javon, by the way, for a mulligan. So Javon, anytime you want to fill in, he's giving me my mulligan.
So I'm tweaking this a little bit, right? With the caveat of, because they just gave him that money, maybe he does have a little carte blanche for one season. But I would not be shocked if this team struggled and they finished 7-10, and Trevor Lawrence struggled. You're going to look in a different direction. And the coaches Jovan mentioned, Robert Saleh is definitely. Mike McDaniel's interesting. We'll talk a little bit about him down the road. Eberflus in Chicago.
He needs to be gone. He needs to be gone. Come on.
But this is why you give him a pass.
No. No pass. No pass.
You don't even know. Okay, why do you think
Eberflus needs to be as gone as the White Sox freaking manager?
What, hold on a second. What does he have this year? Think about it. What does Chicago have? What
the
did
rookie
they
that
use
doesn't want to sign his contract?
Excuse me?
The rookie that doesn't want to sign his contract?
Come on, man. Who did they draft?
The
Caleb Williams.
Yes. That
Okay.
didn't want to sign his contract.
Listen, you have a quarterback that you drafted that's 22 years of age. You took him with the top overall pick. We know there's some red flags. You and I have talked about it. I'm not the biggest Caleb Williams fan. Quarterbacks have it's hard to succeed in Chicago as a quarterback. They haven't had too many quarterbacks that you sit there and say, here's a Pro Bowl, MVP type of quarterback.
Right.
He will get 1 year to work with this kid. He will get 1 year, because you have to understand, not everyone's going to burst on the scene like a CJ Stroud.
No, I get that too, but don't forget, he also had Justin
Fields.
So even with Fields, I understand, but you also didn't. To me, as a head coach, it didn't seem like you talked to your OC, your QB coach, and said, "What is wrong with this kid? Let's figure out what's young man." I know we say kids because I was here much younger. What's wrong with this young man? Can we get him?
He had problems reading defenses, and he improvised too much, Justin Fields, and that's why he's bounced around.
Okay, but at the same time, too, why didn't the head coach then take the time and say, "Listen, Justin, listen, we're off Monday, right? I know we're off on Monday. I need you to come in. You're not going to do it."
How do we know he didn't do that? Are you in the friggin' room in Chicago? Are you flying out to Chicago on a Sunday and coming back Monday to do the show? We don't know. I know what you're saying, right? I know what you're saying, but we don't know. Justin Fields, I think the kid has a little bit of talent, and it's always about a change of scenery. But I believe if you've got a head coach that inherits or has a rookie quarterback, there's some wiggle room, man, because then all of a sudden, let's just say you fire the head coach, right? You fire the head coach. When you fire a head coach, you hire a new head coach. The new head coach comes in and wants to bring in his own coordinators. So now you're going to give another coordinator a kid with another coordinator. I mean, to be fair, the Giants went through it. Jones had a couple coordinators. To be fair, Hurts might have to go through it. To be fair, Williams might have to go through it. It's tough sometimes when you just have this revolving door with these head coaches, and then they fire, and then they bring in other head coaches, and then boom, we bring in our coordinators. Now you got to learn a new system, man. I mean, it's tough for a veteran guy. Peyton Manning going to Denver, and Aaron Rodgers going to New York, a Brett Favre going to Minnesota. I mean, it's tough. Now, different animals, because those are Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but I get what you're saying. I think you get some wiggle room when you have a rookie quarterback because you have to expect he's going to struggle. And now it's not 20 years ago, man.
All right, but
remember 20 years ago, sit behind the guy and wait?
yeah, I understand. I get that. But okay, again, hypothetical purposes. I see Javon and Kelly High. I believe someone new here who's tuning in. Thank you. We appreciate it. But getting back here to Javon's comment, my thing is what happens. Let's just say hypothetically, Justin Fields hypothetically has a breakout with the Steelers. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, then you say that a change of scenery didn't good, and then everyone's going to give credit to who? The head coach.
Okay. So to me, Eberflus is he's the guy I want to play bingo with. Like, hey,
I don't think he's a good head coach by no stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
All I'm saying is I think when you have a rookie quarterback, ownership group would sit there and say, well, we saw progress. We saw progress, even though he struggled a little bit. How much is it? That's why it's so hard in the NFL to get a hit when it comes to drafting a quarterback, because people don't really, you can't quantify. If you have a miss when it comes to a quarterback, the trickle down effect, people lose jobs. People lose jobs, right? So it's like, that is a trickle-down effect, and that's not what you want. All right, 12 after 1, quickie timeout. We'll close it out on the other side, 727-858-6650. Keep it locked in, a Friday edition of Middays with Q, coming at you live exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, in conjunction with Coastal Sports Network and powered by ION TV.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
ION Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, IONTB.com. ION Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by ION Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
By the way, every time I hear that liner and I hear, I look at my phone. 727-858-6650. I'm just seeing some of the incoming nonsense. What's going on, Joey B? Q Angel? I got a little trim. Still long, man. I had to put the, looking sharp Q. So wait, go back. Hold on, go back to that. Clams on the half shell. Jersey Shore digs a man that orders clams as an appetizer.
That's Joey B.
What an ass. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Is that true? I don't know. I mean, Clams Casino, mussels, clams, whatever. I mean, is Joey B trying to tell me something? Jovan, Eberflus should get held to a higher standard. Additions on offense, Swift, Allen, Odunza, defense. Yep, Chicago can move on for make Waldron the head coach. I'd have to pull up and again, this is just, if we're talking, and I hate doing this in July, the head coaches that will get fired, right? It's crazy that you look at it. Salah's still sitting there. Eberflus is there. McCarthy is there. Dennis Allen, kind of the guys we talked about on today's show. It's, the NFL is such a monster. And again, if you don't draft appropriately, if you don't draft If you don't have a hit, you're out of a job, man.
Mhm.
That's what makes what a Belichick did so special. And really, that's what's making Andy Reid. Andy Reid, I mean, think about it. Everyone thinks, great run with the Philadelphia Eagles, 4 straight NFC championships, finally get over the hump. You beat the Atlanta Falcons, you lose in the Super Bowl to New England. I look at Andy Reid and I just say, man, Hall of Fame because of Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Right.
Thoughts on the Giants top 100 players list that was released. Embarrassing as a Giant fan, shaking my head. Yeah, I think they're throwing out guys that none of us, unless you're like a walking encyclopedia and you can appreciate their history, like myself, you sit there and say, oh, okay, I can kind of recall some of these guys. Now, granted, if a guy was playing in 1923 running in the snow, I'd have to probably watch a video on it if they had any video, or microfiche. Remember you went to the library? Was it microfilm or microfiche? You remember that? You went to the library and you had to put it in there and then you ran it and you went,
Yep.
Am I really dating myself? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it microfiche or microfilm? Or do I just like saying microfiche?
I think you like to say microfiche because
I got to refresh. I can't believe this.
Oh,
Do
boy.
not go anywhere. No.
Right.
Do not.
Yeah,
Okay.
anywhere.
Now you can talk.
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's on me. It's on me. It's on me. We're refreshing.
All right,
We're
go ahead.
refreshing. It's
Yeah.
okay.
All
They
right.
can live with us for 10 seconds.
That's
And I
right.
want to know if I'm saying this correct. So everyone hang. This is a good close to the show. Hang tight.
Yeah. See, as Joey B, he'll come back. Library and microfiche. Yep, you're old. See, now he'll come back, Joey B. He'll find out exactly what it is. But by the way, folks, they still have it. You can still go to the library and take a look because the newspapers are set up that way. In about 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Is it microfiche or microfilm?
So Joey B says library and microfiche. Yep, you're old. No, but it was microfilm because don't forget, even today though, you can still go to the library and take a look at the. So if you had newspapers back from 1961, 1970, you still can go back in there, feed it, and scroll through because that's where. Okay.
Yeah, libraries. To be honest, back in the day,
yeah,
you roam around a library. That's not a bad place to maybe meet a nice young lady, who studies, who's into, say, the liberal arts. Not that I was roaming libraries. I'm just saying, if you have,
very young Martha Stewart.
She probably spent a lot of time in the library.
I'm quite sure.
Yeah. Now I'm starting to think, was she reading books, or you think she was just on the prowl?
Could have been on the prowl. Figure out how to get things going. Lord knows that if I still don't believe that she should have gone to jail for what she did, what they're doing today. But whatever.
Joey B, I'm so old. I showed my son a rotary phone. He looked at me and said, "How do you use this thing?" Rotary phones. That's another thing. What older people, for some reason, they still have house phones.
Yeah.
And what's annoying as hell is like, all right, the house phone rings, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, when are they going to call the cell phone? And then the cell phone rings. Or, hey, did you call? Yeah, you just saw my friggin' ID.
What I liked was when, listen, it's rare. As a kid, all right.
Yeah.
Those who are new to the show, yes, we were a little bit older than what, the Gen Zers. But the one thing that was great was if one of my friends, Julio, it was like dumb stuff he would get into. It wasn't nothing major. But if you knew that he was going to get into something, basically, and thankfully we only lived down the street from each other, but you had to run and beat the call to the house. Therefore, if they came back and they're like, Mom, here's what happened real quick, Mom, and spit it out. Because when she picked up the receiver, hello, Yolanda, forget about it. Then it was over. But
yeah,
now everything is instant. And you can't jump off a front step, land on the front stoop, go back up the steps, go in the house with already the text message. You want to explain what you just did now. Like, how the hell did you get that?
No, it's like you ran home and then God forbid if you missed something, you had to wait a whole day. Or, if you were kind of a punk kid like I was and getting in a lot of trouble and had to get my ass kicked a lot by my father, when you're punished and you're sent to your room at 6:00 at night in the spring and summer and you see all the friggin' kids playing in your yard.
Yep.
I mean, you want to talk about the worst feeling in the world is when you peek out of the blinds or you pull up the shades or you're like looking down and all of a sudden the window's cracked open and you can kind of wave to them and they're playing ball right in your friggin' yard.
Yep. That's the worst.
As they say, it just toughens you up.
It does, because it did suck, especially in the summertime, because it was the summer was very short, and now and up in the Northeast it feels a little bit longer because of where it ends and then where it starts. Versus
Yeah.
here in Florida, where it ends and where it starts, it feels a lot more condensed. But no, you're right though, because there was times where it was the same way. If we did something, even if it was as simple as a house chore, right? My mom used to punish us for it. Did you clean your room? Mom, it's always clean. That's not what I asked. I asked you, did you clean your room? So now you back talk to me, and now you can look out your windows to your friends because that's not
That's
where you're
it.
going to be at today.
That's
And
it.
that was like the end of the world.
Yeah.
Now today with the kids, oh, give me this. What am I supposed to do? Like, come on, man. Seriously.
Imagine telling a kid right now to go play outside or read a book. They would look at you like, who is this jerk?
Exactly. Exactly. What the hell is a book? Something
Yeah.
that common sense used to have.
Joey B, been watching some of the older boxing matches ESPN is showing Aaron. Man, I miss the days of the big fight in Vegas, Atlantic City. Fun to watch the big events. Yeah, and it kind of goes to I wanted to get into a little sweet science before we get out of here. I'll give you my picks in a moment. Yeah, I always had this. I think I brought it up several times, and it's something too. The Double Jab podcast, which I do on the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. You're not, look, there, unless you really cover the sport and really follow the sport. I mean, think about this. July 20th on The Zone, Jake Paul, and I give him credit because the way he's been able to cultivate going from the YouTube and then becoming a legit fighter, whether you question how good he is or not, he's fighting on The Zone in Tampa, right? You've got Terrence Crawford, which is a big name junior middleweight fighting for a title. I mean, there's in my backyard this weekend in South Philadelphia. Well, in Philadelphia, I should say, Boots Ennis, Jaron Ennis,
Right.
is fighting, and people look at him, and right now they think he's one of the best welterweights in boxing, right? I mean, he's 27 years of age. They think he's the next great. Obviously, we talk about these champs, these names come out of Philadelphia. If you followed his career at all, an IBF, champ, IBF welterweight champ. I mean, he's an exceptional fighter. And interesting enough, he fought in Atlantic City last July, I think it was. He defeated Romain Villa, knocked him out in the 10th round, and he kept his IBF interim welterweight title. Now, he's signed right now, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. Boots Ennis is a big name to come out of Philadelphia. The Albright brothers, they're big names come out of Philadelphia. There's a lot of really good fighters in Philly, in Jersey. They call it the DMV, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, like up and down 95, down in DC, Maryland. But to Joey's point, Vegas it's still the Mecca, right? And back in the day, Madison Square Garden, the Mecca. Atlantic City, you're not going to get big time fights in Atlantic City. There are good promoters. There are smaller promoters that are trying to do really good stuff. But the problem is the city is so corrupt. To be quite honest with you, the city's corrupt. There's been issues with the mayor, and I'll leave it at that because, when I go out and about on that, and then all of a sudden you upset the apple cart, you rattle the cages. People don't like to hear that because I'm so intertwined and close to Atlantic City and have a lot of ties to Atlantic City. But sometimes where all the friggin' bodies are buried. And when you go to say like the, and I want to make sure I get it right, CRDA or CRDC, it's the casino. You go to the casino, I think it's CRDA, and I always feel like I butcher it. Casino Reinvestment Development Authority. There you go, CRDA. People go there for money, right? Put in casinos, and then you got to hire the union guys. So you're basically they're paying for people they already want to hire. There have been some in the fight game that have actually had the audacity to go to this group, to CRDA, and say, hey, give me a couple million. Let me put on fights like we used to do back in the day. And let's be honest. I mean, that money's going right in their pocket. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. And that's why the CRDA is not dumb enough to open up their checkbook and write a check, because there's no way you're going to compete. You're not putting on fights in Atlantic City like it was in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. That's number one. You have too many casinos. It's saturated. It's a shitty area. There's a lot of crime. Borgata, It's not in Atlantic City, so you really don't have to go into Atlantic City.
Right.
It didn't help that the tourists got stabbed years ago from Canada, Tropicana. People don't want to walk in the parking lot. You don't want to go down Tennessee Avenue. There's always nonsense down ML King Boulevard. I mean, it's just not. There's some good people in the city, and I don't like to pigeonhole it, but it's not the best city. There's a lot of political nonsense. There's a lot of corruption, and it's a fact. People don't need to hear that from me. And whether they like it or not, tough shit. It's a fact. There's a lot of crooked people in Atlantic City. Everyone's putting their hand in the cookie jar. And to Joey's point, you're not going to get to where it was because they just don't want to deal with boxing. They don't think it's a draw. The casinos have tried it. The casinos have worked to try to bring in some MMA, and they've been successful to some extent. But it's tough in the summertime because, again, people want to come to the shore. They're going to go to the casino. They're going to gamble. You're not going to sit there in the casinos and have, 350 marketing tickets to give away for a big fight. And out of those 350 tickets that's allocated, the player has to play to a certain level, right? Ringside, second row, third row. Here we go. Is he a $150,000 player? Is he a $200,000 player? Have fun, have at it, go enjoy yourself. But then you get leftover tickets or you mismarket those tickets. And then what happens? You get the vagabonds. I mean, you get the day trippers.
Right.
You get the, let's be honest, just people that are classless, that are just causing trouble. Give me the ticket. Give me the ticket. It's a very tough sell. And then the other thing is the streaming aspect. Showboat, we used to stream a lot of the fights in Showboat, but then all of a sudden streaming went from X to Y to now Z. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5,000. That's not a casino. That's a hotel. That used to be a casino. That's a hotel. You walk through there and interlocks, walk under the tunnel, right through, and it connects you to Hard Rock. Ocean, they've changed their name. They try to pitch it as a resort. It's not. It's not a resort destination. You can't say it's a family destination. It's a freaking casino.
Yep.
You're going to drop your kids off at the buffet while you're going to gamble? It's a tough nut to crack. There's too many casinos in this area. People are still going to Phillies. People are still going to Delaware. People are still going to North Jersey. They're still going to Connecticut. It's tough, man. And then here's another thing. If you're thinking about doing something in August because you're like, hey, the air show was canceled, which I enjoy the air show because I sit outside. I see the jets, they fly, they practice, but one of the big acts kind of dropped out. So there's no air show this year in Atlantic City. So that's going to be a substantial amount of lost revenue and tourists, right? And tourism and people getting to the casino. So there are some promoters that I think are doing a nice job, right?
Right.
No. Slots Guy Wheel of Fortune. No. Neon Day Glow Muscle. Two things. Never in my life, Joey B. Pull that comment back up. I want the comment to sit for a minute. Never in my life. I dabbled in the slots here and there, but never in. I like playing blackjack. You guys know that. And by the way, I haven't walked in a casino in about a year plus. I just won't do it anymore. It's almost like a turnoff when you see the nonsense. 1994 Neon Day Glow muscle shirt. I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, are we talking Capri's OP? I mean, I'm not doing that. He triggered. It's not even a trigger. I don't get triggered. It's more of, I'm just trying to explain to you that absolutely not. What are you going to stereotype now? Is that what you're doing, Joey B? Do you want that shirt on? Do you want the stains?
Or is it like the Pauly Shore?
No.
Oh boy.
Not Paul. Not.
Mm-hmm.
You're such an ass, man. Not Pauly Shore. You're talking Pauly from the Jersey Shore.
Right, yeah, there you go. That one.
Yeah. No, it's a really tough nut to crack, to be honest. Bringing the fights down here. I mean, Danny Garcia, great champ from Philadelphia, he was putting fights down here, and then we would kind of sit and think to myself, why not put him in the Northeast or South Philly? That's where you're from. But he's trying to draw the traffic to Atlantic City. And here's another thing, Angel. Depending upon the state, like if you're going to put on a solid card, you got to think of the medicals, you got to think of insurance, you got to think of the venue. Are you going to get allocated rooms? Are you working a split? Are you working a deal at the gate, at the door? Are you going to have open bar, you're going to have concessions, or you're going to get that. Then you got to, if you're doing 6, 7, 8, 9 fights, 4-rounders, 6-rounders, 8-rounders, you have to have a draw in the fight. You got to have, maybe it's a regional belt, NABA, NABO, NABF. Then you got the co-main. You should put a female fight because it's an attraction. Female boxing is booming right now. That's one of the things Jake Paul has done with his MVP promotions. He backs the Serrano sisters. He's an advocate for female fighting. They are a friggin' draw. I love when they have female fights on the cards. That's one of the aspects of Team Combat League I love, because you mix and match the males and the females. You have all that in consideration. And then if you got a 1,500 arena, 2,000 seat arena, and you got 350 people, that's a horrible look for TV. I mean, you got empty seats. You can zoom in only so much. That's a bad look. And you want to try to get in a 2-hour broadcast, 22 rounds. And that's even if you're thinking about putting it in post-production. If you're running it live, pay-per-view, you can't justify charging somebody $35, $45 for a local card. $9, $10, $15 at the most. But some of these services want $29. You're not doing that. The fighters have a responsibility, promote. There should be a referral program with the fighters, right? And we don't see that, and that's what happens. So I'm very passionate about this because I've been covering the sport pretty much more than half my life and calling fights, and I'm an advocate for the sport, but there's a lot of the sport that I can't stand. There's a lot of corruption in the sport, and just being so close to Atlantic City and just seeing the nonsense over the last several years and just the shady characters. I mean, I can weed them out. They know. And if they were tuning in, they probably sit there and say, is he talking about me? Yeah, I am. But I'm not going to name names because you know who you friggin' are, right? I mean, I know where the bodies are buried in this regard. And I don't see Atlantic City ever getting to that point again. And it's okay. It's ran its course. There's other venues, there's other states, there's other markets where I think you'll get a nice fix when it comes to boxing. But I want to close with my picks, by the way. Yesterday, 3-2. We missed on the run line. No, we actually missed on the total run line on the Dodgers and the Phillies. But I want to remind you, Middays with Q, this gambling portion from our good friends at BYP. And that, of course, brought to you by fresh roasted coffee. Nothing like waking up in the morning to a delicious cup of coffee to get your day started. Myself in the summer heat, I prefer a little iced cafe, a little cold brew, thanks to our new coffee sponsor, Fresh Roasted Coffee. You can, too, enjoy a delicious assortment of flavors, fresh roasted coffee. Click the link in the show notes. We'll post this on the YouTube channel later on today. Special offer at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Take their coffee quiz. Check out the site, what brands and roast match up to your liking, and you get what? If you're going to check out your order, you put the promo code BYP20, 20% off your first purchase. Our Back Your Play segment, our gambling segments of Middays with Q. So let me give you the 3 to get out of here, and hopefully you put a little coin in the pocket. I do like Cincinnati over the Marlins, minus 175 on the run line. Pittsburgh, we mentioned them a little bit, talking about their pitcher. They're plus 145 because they haven't named the starter, by the way, against the White Sox, who stink. Give me Pittsburgh. And then Atlanta over, I think, an underachieving San Diego team. I look at the pitching matchups in this one. I think the bats are going to come alive for Atlanta, minus 125. I'll tweet them out as well as we start to wrap it up at 135-ish. Don't forget, next week we are all back in the saddle, even the incredible Shrinking Hermano. Yes, what do you got there? I
want to bring up a point. I want to bring up a point when you talk about Atlantic City, because you and I grew up in the area. You mostly be out there at Jersey Shore, for me being out in Philly. But when you one was Joey, you brought up a great point as far as the boxing there, because it used to be the premier landing spot other than Vegas. I mean, those are the two places
correct
that absolutely loved it. Miami would get every once in a while, but you really had to talk to the the Gottis of the world for things that happen down in
Ward got, yep, 100%.
But Atlantic City is one of those. I mean, it was back in the day a good landing spot,
of course,
for people to go to, especially went to the boardwalk. It was so nice. And to me, Atlantic City just got stuck in the rut, like in the same place.
Think about this. I throw out names like Tyson, Larry Holmes, Hector Camacho, Roberto Duran, Ward and Gotti, Tyson and Spinks, Hearns and Oleji, Evander Holyfield. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. Roy Jones Jr., Montel Griffin. That was at the Trump Taj Mahal in 1997. I mean, I think the last notable fight, Glenn Tapia, James Kirkland, Joe Smith Jr. fought Jesse Hart. That was at the Hard Rock when they opened their first month inside the Edis Arena, Mark A. Edis Arena. So yes, listen, they've tried it with MMA. They've had it in some of the casinos, PFL. They've tried it as well. I actually thought Team Combat League would actually house one of the casinos. I thought it would be a good fit down in Atlantic City, but they have Philadelphia. If they had a New Jersey team, maybe it's different. So they have the 2300 Arena. But yeah, to your point, there were so many good fights back in the day. It was, I mean, it's just the history is rich, right? The history is rich. When you had the Seldins, when you had the Johnsons, the one kid who has a belt right now from Millville, Thomas Cornflake Lamanna. He's got his own promotional company. Like, I give him a ton of credit. And, I've been so critical of him at times throughout the course of his career. But I've always respected what he's done in the ring, and I respect what he does as a promoter. I mean, he's basically wearing a lot of hats, and he's trying to put more fights in Atlantic City. I mentioned Danny Garcia, Alex Barbosa, R&B Promotions in Philly, trying to creep down to Atlantic City. So I respect these guys for what they're trying to do, but it's a tough nut to crack because you don't want to lose money, right? So if I have a venue, say the convention center, and it holds a couple thousand and I'm only putting 500, I need to have that draw, right? And now you're seeing a lot of these promoters are smart. They're getting fighters from, say, Nigeria. They're getting fighters from Serbia. They're getting fighters from Croatia. They're getting fighters from Lebanon. They're understanding, the I guess you can say the demographics, the geographics of, say, a North Jersey. And if, say, it's or in New York, if there's a predominant Polish American fan base, they're bringing on that fighter from Poland, right? I mean, we've streamed to Poland in the past for boxing TV. So it's very hard to make money putting on fights is really my point. Unless you are an MVP, unless you are a Golden Boy Promotions, unless you are a Matchroom, unless you are a Top Rank, it's really hard. The local boxing cards, right? You have the amateurs, and I'll say this, I'll credit, a guy like Alex Barbosa, who I've worked with for so many years. He puts on a lot of amateur tournaments. They used to have a lot of amateur tournaments in the Atlantic City PAL. They don't anymore, or the JCC. But point being is amateur boxing, the grassroots boxing, say whatever you want about how they score, how they judge, the politics of it. We know it's everywhere. But that's the lifeblood, because you see some of these young fighters. If you go to my YouTube channel, right, Rich Q on Q, and you see all the amateur boxing footage I've had, you're going to see, like, for instance, I have fights when I covered Shakur Stevenson, who's from Newark, who fought for a medal. And now, again, he's one of the most popular fighters out there. People don't like his style because he's not fan-friendly to some. He's an exceptional fighter. The kid's a remarkable fighter, great story. Point being is, you follow these guys, you see how they make that ascension into the pro ranks, right? And you follow your career. You need the local cards for that. But it's hard if I'm putting on a local card, if I'm putting on 10 fights, and this is the issue that DC, Virginia, and Maryland had. And again, I say this with respect. If I'm putting on 10 fights,
okay,
I know this as a fact before I even look at the bout sheet and look at the records. There's probably going to be 3 or 4, maybe even 5 first-round knockouts because they're mismatches. If you're bringing these fighters up, and again, I have to preface this by saying no disrespect, you will see anytime you go on a local card or watch some of these fights, you see some of these kids from down south in the North Carolinas, they get knocked out pretty fast. And again, I'm not trying to be critical of them. It's the matchmaking. It's putting these guys on the card. And if you have 8 fights and 4 of the kids are from North Carolina and they're first round knockouts, commissions don't like that. You can't justify paying, $150, $200 ring sites. Fans don't want that. Me as a broadcaster, sometimes you almost get annoyed because you want to see some action, but not like that where it's so obvious. It's just watching a fight that's not going to be competitive, and then you bring in fighter safety. It's a bad look. It's not television friendly. It does make the broadcast in the night go fast. I'm not going to complain about that, but it's not competitive. So what happens is you're not going to put 10 fights anymore. Give me 6, 7, 8 strong fights. But with that, if I want to make them really competitive, I got to shell out for some of these guys. See, Team Combat League, if they're paying guys $1,500 to $2,000 to fight one round, right? 3 minutes, in and out. It might take them 2 or 3 professional fights stretched over 3 or 4 months to make that money. Golden Gloves MSG, Mark Breland. Mark Breland, all-time great amateur, called fights with Mark Breland, called to Golden Gloves, Daily News Golden Gloves. I called the 97th, 98th, 99th edition of the New York Daily News Golden Gloves at the Barclays Center years ago. Love Mark Breland. Suspect Jim, we always talk about that in the pros, but he was a great amateur, one of the all-time great amateurs. He was a heck of a pro, did a lot of work with Deontay Wilder as well. But point being, you need the amateur bouts to build the pro cards, and you can't have one without the other, and it's a tough nut to crack. So, all right, and the dogs are barking, so we know what that means. Got to close it up on a Friday edition. Great stuff from you guys chiming in. Always, I know sometimes I run off on the boxing talk, but you guys know it's I'm a big time boxing guy. So felt for him. Absolutely, Joey. Absolutely. So, all right, good stuff. You guys can keep it rolling. You can tweet at us at RichQ on Q. Do not forget, download the app. Angel mentioned it. We've been talking about it. Just go on Broad Street South. You can check out what we're doing, all the great content. And if you click on Sports Radio 1029 FM, the game link, that'll give you all the information to download right there. Just a click away. We are powered by ION TV in conjunction with Coastal Sports Network. Fantastic job with you guys. Another week in the books. We will all be back in the saddle next week. Start the week off right on a Monday. Pete Sheppard Show 7 to 10. The incredible Shrinking Hermano, Angel Martinez from 10 to 12. Myself, Middays with Q, 12 to 2. Steve Gardner next week. Brandon Bell. Lloyd Vance is going to join us. Jonathan Marshall. Nick Costco. Also, Jonathan Marshall and his brother Marshall Time. New podcast, Lloyd Vance Insider Football, talking hoops with the gang. That's all on Sports Radio 1029 FM, the game, part of the Coastal Sports Network, Broad Street South, and always powered by ION TV. My friend, you have a wonderful sports weekend. Do you have anything planned? Is this a rest and relaxation weekend for you as the head is shrinking?
No, it's more work weekend. Are you kidding me? You don't take a break when you're freaking running stuff. Tracy? No.
Angel's I know as soon as we go off the air, Q's going to call me by 2. Yeah, probably much. So with that being said, always appreciate you, Angel Martinez, behind the glass producing show, keeping us on the air. Please share the links out on social media. Follow us on X. Share everything. Comment, like, critique, chime in. We love it. We appreciate it. We enjoy it. But more importantly, just tell your friends, download the app, keep it locked in, keep it rolling with us. And we really appreciate you guys coming over and a little alternative to sports talk, trying to make it entertaining and fun and informative, throughout the week and throughout the day. So a lot of football stuff coming up with the season right around the corner, a lot of partnerships that we are building. So some good news and notes and some details that we will be sharing very, very soon. But as always, appreciate you guys keeping it locked in. Have a wonderful Sports Friday. Enjoy your weekend. We will be back in the saddle on a Monday edition of Middays with Q. Angel Martinez. I'm Rich Quinones. As always, be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.